Chapter 13. Dragon Scale Sea Area. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Fang Yuan took the list and skimmed through it. The list was filled with various kinds of goo materials. Most of them were naturally mortal goo materials, but there were a few immortal materials as well. Fang Yuan was well aware that if he had handed the frost jades, the frost jade essences, and so on, the reward would not just be this. Wu Yong and Wu Fa were actually acting now. They were not scheming against Fang Yuan, but giving Fang Yuan a way to resolve this issue peacefully. Fang Yuan had plundered Frosty Peak. Although it did not cross the bottom line, Wu clan would rather have an intact Frosty Peak. Fang Yuan, however, seemed to not know this, and was silent for a while before he replied, "I wonder if I can exchange these rewards for a mortal goo material, dragon scale soil?" Wu Yong was slightly stumped and looked at Wu Fa. The latter thought briefly and nodded. Returning to his home, Fang Yuan continued to cultivate. This time he had obtained a lot of frost jades and frost jade essence. Fang Yuan might even be able to build a mini Frosty Peak in mini southern border within his sovereign immortal aperture. But this was not the important point. The important point was the dragon scale soil. This special type of soil was only an ordinary goo material, grainy and tough. If a layer of dragon scale soil was viewed from afar, it would resemble overlapping dragon scales. Dragon scale soil was the soil that dragon-type desolate beasts, ancient desolate dragons, or even immemorial desolate dragons lived on. Thus it had the aura of dragons. Fang Yuan had purchased this soil before, because this soil gave his dragonfish greater impulse to propagate. Right now, he did not take the other rewards, instead exchanging them for this goo material because he had the same idea. The rate of time in the sovereign immortal aperture has slowed down by many times. This has led to a huge decrease in the production of resources. I don't have enough immortal essence reserves currently. The same goes for immortal essence stones, but the pressure in this aspect can be relieved if I expand the scale of my resource production. After Fang Yuan thought over it, he set dragonfish as the first resource point to be expanded. Desolate beast. Dragonfish as well as ordinary dragonfish were always traded in huge numbers in Treasure Yellow Heaven. Dragonfish seemed to be a product of food path. They could be used as supplementary ingredients to feed many goo worms. Not every goo immortal possessed immortal goo. But every superforce would purchase large numbers of dragonfish at set intervals of time. The dragonfish trade was one of the largest markets in Treasure Yellow Heaven. During the following period of time, Fang Yuan would mainly concentrate on creating a sea area. Currently, mini eastern sea of the sovereign immortal aperture was no longer filled with shallow pools and lakes like before. Because Fang Yuan had annexed large numbers of waterpath immortal apertures, mini eastern sea was filled with raging waves. Although the water level was not deep, it was a boundless aquatic expanse. There were almost no islands, and sea areas themselves were indistinguishable. Fang Yuan's plan was to construct a dragon-scale sea area, a man-made sea area. This was not Fang Yuan's innovation or creation. In fact, there were many goo immortals in Eastern Sea's goo immortal world creating man-made sea areas. On the current ranking list for Eastern Sea's goo immortal world, many famous sea areas were man-made, built step by step. Of course, the naturally formed sea areas still held most of the positions in the ranking. In all, constructing a sea area artificially was not easy. Fang Yuan spent a large amount of time and energy to lay out the dragon-scale soil. Then he constructed a mortal goo formation in that area and used the goo formation's power to isolate this sea area and make it a special sea area. Then he led his dragonfish group to the sea area. The dragonfish group was indeed more satisfied in this sea area, and there was a lot more mating. However, this was not enough. Next, Fang Yuan started to prepare an immortal killer move. Bountiful year. Oh, this immortal killer move came from He Fan's true inheritance. But as a matter of fact, He Fan did not create it. He had traded for it with a goo immortal great expert named Pill Immortal. Nimmer, he created this immortal killer move, and He Fan had exchanged for it with other resources. This was a quite rare killer move, as it was an immortal killer move that was specially used to manage the immortal aperture and did not have any offensive ability. But its practicality was extremely high, Even Heifan had left words of praise towards this immortal killer move in his true inheritance. Goo worms rose one after the other. A mysterious aura swelled up and gradually thickened. The bountiful year Fang Yin was using right now had gone through some modifications. The original bountiful year's core immortal goo was year goo, with tens of thousands of supplementary goo worms. But now Fang Yuan had obtained a rank 7 immortal goo perseverance, and he ingeniously added perseverance immortal goo into the killer move as the first supplementary goo worm. More than 10 days later, bountiful year was fully activated. A mysterious power spread throughout the whole dragon scale sea area, but its effects would take some time to be seen. Even Hei Fan required 2 to 3 days of time to activate the original bountiful year. This is already quite long. After I modified it by adding in perseverance immortal goo, the time required has become even longer, approaching half a month. Fortunately, the activation succeeded, and there was no backlash. Fang Yin constantly reflected on his experiences. My time path attainment level is still ordinary. I was barely able to add in perseverance immortal goo. This is the main reason for the enormous extension of time. The shorter the activation of an immortal killer move, the simpler the process, the higher the probability of the killer move's successful activation. And as far as goo immortals were concerned, it was safer. However, Fang Yuan's action had more advantages than disadvantages. With perseverance immortal goo's support, the duration of bountiful year's effect had doubled. The original bountiful year could only influence the immortal aperture for a year, but now a single activation from Fang Yuan could last for 2 years. This had also covertly saved Fang Yuan a portion of red date immortal essence. There is still plenty of room for improvement in bountiful year. Adding in perseverance immortal goo along with day immortal goo could raise bountiful year's effect. But with my current attainment level and time path, I have reached my limit. Forget it. The matter was settled. This construction was Fang Yuan's first big project. Right now, in Mini Eastern Sea, the first special sea area dragon scale sea area had completely formed. Large numbers of dragonfish lived here, and there were 1 or 2 extremely conspicuous, desolate beast dragonfish among the dragonfish group. Bountiful year's effect did not just cover the dragon scale sea area, it also included a vast range of this sea area's surroundings. According to what was written in Hei Fan's True Inheritance, the expenditure of immortal essence to activate bountiful year was huge, but for the next year, starting right from the moment of successful activation of the killer move, all of the resources inside the immortal aperture would be produced at a higher rate. However, the result was not like this. Fang Yuan's bountiful year's effect only covered a portion of Mini Eastern Sea. On one hand, this was because Fang Yuan had added perseverance immortal goo, which reduced the effective range of the killer move. On the other hand, the sovereign immortal aperture was simply too vast. Wanting bountiful year to cover the whole sovereign immortal aperture was no different to a fairy tale. From Dragon Scale Lake to Dragon Scale Sea, this was an enormous leap, and its significance was profound. But after this project, Fang Yuan's immortal essence stones and immortal essence reserves were almost dried up. To be safe, Fang Yuan began to sell all the unnecessary resources in his possession. Like the frost jades and frost jade essences he had plundered in Frosty Peak, as well as large numbers of Ice Path mortal gem. Where there are gains, there are losses. His current management focus was on dragonfish. After selling some resources, Fang Yuan gritted his teeth. He used a portion of the gains to buy many dragonfish from Treasure Yellow Heaven. He placed these dragonfish in Dragon Scale Sea area. One could say he was staking a lot on this project. No doubt this had some risks, but if he went at it safely, the efficiency would be lower. Moreover, he was in a safe and stable environment right now. So Fang Yuan chose to be slightly aggressive and took bigger steps. But like this, because his immortal essence reserves had become scarce, Fang Yuan appeared to have his hands tied, not being able to casually cultivate, comprehend, train any immortal killer moves and so on. Days seemed to pass with difficulty. After half a month, the first batch of dragonfish was sold. The situation began to turn for the better. After over a month, Fang Yuan sold the second batch of dragonfish directly to Wu Clan. Who could have thought you would be so proficient in managing dragonfish? Even Wu Yong was slightly surprised. Wu Clan did transactions of dragonfish to begin with, but previously they had to buy from outside. Now they could be considered internal sales. Besides Wu Clan, there were also Chao Clan and some other super forces which had close relations with Wu Clan. Fang Yuan's third batch of dragonfish was sold. Because of his identity as Wu Yihai and the low price, Fang Yuan's dragonfish smoothly entered the market of Southern Border's Gu Immortal World. After the third batch of dragonfish was sold, Fang Yuan's situation had turned a lot better. His immortal essence reserves were expanding bit by bit. Fang Yuan was out of his financial predicament and started to continue his cultivation with a brand new stance.